Welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. A tragedy on the water today. 29 passengers are missing and 4 bodies were recovered from a commercial diving boat that caught fire early this morning. The boat was off the coast of Santa Cruz Island in Southern California.
According to the Coast Guard's Aaron Bemis, the fire began around 3:14 a.m. with the cause still unclear. The Ventura County Fire Department was on the scene within 15 minutes. Monica Rochester, a captain with the U.S. Coast Guard, said the boat sank as firefighters worked to put out the blaze. The boat, dubbed the Conception, was in 64 feet of water when it sank. There were 38 people on board. Rochester said rescuers were able to save the 5 crew members.
The crew was actually already awake and on the bridge, and they jumped off.
According to Bemis, the passengers were sleeping below deck when they were trapped by the fire. He said the blaze was so intense that even after it was extinguished, the Coast Guard wasn't able to board the vessel. Rescuers are currently searching the shoreline for survivors. According to the website Truth Aquatics, which conducts boat charters, Conception left Saturday on a 3-day cruise and was scheduled to return Monday afternoon.
After pounding the Bahamas, Hurricane Dorian is forecast to move dangerously close to the U.S. in the next 2 days. And on one of the busiest weekends of the year, airlines are offering to help Americans who had their Labor Day plans put on hold because of the hurricane, with many offering travel waivers to replace canceled flights.
While people on the East Coast brace for Dorian's impact, some U.S. airlines are allowing passengers to reschedule their flights for a later date without paying fees. Southwest, JetBlue, American, Delta, and United are just a few airlines offering a no-cost alternate booking this week. As airlines work to remedy drenched travel plans, residents in Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas are working hard to finish last-minute preparations. The state's National Guard is also preparing 4,500 soldiers for emergency response. Dorian is forecast to move dangerously close to Florida's east coast late Monday night through Wednesday night, before moving up close to the coasts of Georgia and South Carolina on Wednesday night and Thursday.
The Florida National Guard will have 4,500 soldiers and airmen activated and ready to respond. They have 15 rotor wing helicopters available. An additional 24 have been offered from regional National Guard locations, and the active Army component has pre-positioned 40 additional helicopters near our state border to respond if needed.
Mandatory evacuations have been ordered in low-lying coastal areas of Martin County, Palm Beach County, Brevard County, St. Lucie County, and St. Johns County, as well as parts of South Carolina's southern coast.
I want to remind our residents to take Hurricane Dorian very seriously. It can be tempting to look at those spaghetti models and that track and hope for that turn to the north.
The evacuation effort comes alongside a state of emergency declaration by the White House for South Carolina and Georgia, while other areas remain under hurricane watches and warnings.
And in Hong Kong, on the first day of school, thousands of students boycotting classes and rallying for democracy, coinciding with a call for a general strike.
Tens of thousands of students gathered at Chinese University of Hong Kong. They fear their freedoms are being slowly eroded by the Communist Party rulers in Beijing, a charge China denies.
Because it somehow affects our future. We don't want our children to live under a society that is really unfair, injustice. And I think that this is the minimum that we can do, and to skip our classes, but to join this event.
Jackie So, president of the University Student Union, said 30,000 students attended the campus rally. Secondary students who also skipped classes rallied in Edinburgh Place. The backdrop on the stage there read, "With no future, there is no need to go to class." This is the first of a planned 2-day strike. Meanwhile, hundreds of staff from Queen Mary Hospital formed a human chain in support of the protesters. Some workers also went on strike, braving strong winds outside as a typhoon threatened. About 40,000 people joined a rally in Tamar Park, near the Hong Kong Legislative Council building.
Being arrested in Hong Kong last Saturday has gone viral as Chinese state-run media try to link him to the CIA. Footage of the incident was captured by photographers from NTD's partner media, the Epoch Times, who were there on the scene.
Footage showed the man being arrested inside a Hong Kong subway station while on his way home. This amid increasing allegations of police brutality, some of the worst in over 3 months of demonstrations.
Is rule of law or not? Rule of law or not? Rule of law. It says
Before he was arrested, police said they were investigating without providing further details. Less than a day after the incident, reports have circulated on Chinese media that the man is suspected of being a CIA commander in Hong Kong. This follows Chinese propaganda that the ongoing protests have been incited by foreign forces. The Chinese regime has launched an extensive social media disinformation campaign against the protesters in Hong Kong. This includes spreading rumors that the protests are the work of terrorists, fomented by Western powers and radical forces.
And Vice President Mike Pence departing from Warsaw today following a 2-day visit with world leaders to pay tribute to Poland on the 80th anniversary of World War II.
Pence on Sunday paid tribute to all those who had lost their lives in pursuit of a victory for freedom.
We'll continue to stand with all of our allies for our common defense. And America and Poland will also continue to call on our allies to live up to the promises that we've made to one another.
Around 10 million Poles live in the United States, making them one of the country's biggest ethnic minorities. Pence said Monday he was happy that Poland is nearly eligible for a visa waiver program.
Happy to report to you today that the United States intends to nominate Poland as soon as it meets its requirements.
He also signed a joint declaration with Poland on 5G network security. The United States has been putting pressure on its allies to exclude Chinese telecoms giant Huawei from the rollout of 5G mobile networks. In his meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Pence said that the U.S. will support Ukraine regarding Crimea.
I can assure you that we will continue to stand with the people of Ukraine on your security, on territorial integrity, including Ukraine's rightful claim of Crimea.
Pence is next headed for Ireland, Iceland, and Britain. President Trump elected to forgo the trip because of Hurricane Dorian. NTD News.
Britain's Prime Minister says the chances of a Brexit deal are rising. Meanwhile, he's warning rebel MPs that if they vote against him to stop a no-deal Brexit, they will be kicked out.
Outside Downing Street, Prime Minister Boris Johnson restated that the UK will leave the EU on the 31st of October.
To show our friends in Brussels that we are united in our purpose, MPs should vote with the government against Corbyn's pointless delay.
An appeal to rebel Conservative MPs to back him and not opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn. According to a senior source from the Whip's office, which ensures politicians vote in line with the party, MPs who vote against no deal are to be expelled and banned from standing as a Conservative candidate. The warning is directed at former ministers who have been vocal about their opposition of a no deal, like former Justice Secretary David Gauke, former Chancellor Philip Hammond and Rory Stewart, who used to be International Development Secretary. They're part of what some people call the Gawkwood Squad.
Johnson will shut down Parliament for 5 weeks before the Brexit deadline, limiting time for MPs to block a no deal. Earlier, Jeremy Corbyn called for a general election and said that his party could help stop a no deal Brexit.
We are working with other parties to do everything necessary to pull our country back from the brink. Then we need a general election.
In an already uncertain atmosphere, a general election may not bring more clarity. Parties are internally divided over Brexit, and it has caused the emergence of new parties like the Brexit Party and a resurgence of the pro-EU Liberal Democrats. Boris Johnson has a wafer-thin majority of just one seat. The last general election called by Theresa May in 2017 actually reduced the majority of the Conservatives, who then had to be propped up by the Northern Irish Democratic Unionist Party.
We know that public opinion is very divided, very polarised. There's no reason to expect that a general election provides any real way forward.
Meanwhile, the government have this week taken up their first advertisements warning people and business owners to get ready for Brexit. Jane Worrell, NTD News.
Also in London, practitioners of the Falun Gong spiritual practice came from across Europe last weekend to call for an end to a 20-year-long persecution in China.
A parade showing the beauty of an ancient practice. About 1,000 practitioners of a traditional meditation discipline called Falun Dafa, also known as Falun Gong, came together from across the UK and Europe.
Coming together and showing the world the beauty of Falun Dafa.
Important benefit for me, it's really the calm.
The body-mind practice includes a seated meditation and standing Qigong exercises, and its main tenets are truthfulness, compassion and tolerance.
Ancient, history-tested principles, truthfulness, compassion and tolerance. My Polish grandmother was teaching me those principles.
Walking past 10 Downing Street, the Prime Minister's house, a European marching band. But overshadowing the beauty is suppression in China. When more people in China started practicing it than were in the Communist Party, former leader Jiang Zemin tried to eradicate the practice.
My father and I were held in a brainwashing center for 21 days.
Practitioners of Falun Gong who believe in truth, compassion and tolerance have been persecuted in China for 20 years. The practitioners behind me here in Parliament Square are calling for an end to this brutal persecution.
A People's Tribunal held in London found in June that they are victims to a crime that for many is hard to believe: forced organ harvesting. In its final judgment, the tribunal concluded forced organ harvesting still is happening in China and described China as a criminal state.
World powers, the politicians, the legislators across the world should bring pressure on China to bear to stop this horrendous practice of killing individuals for stealing their organs.
Enver Tohti, who testified at the tribunal that he removed the organs from a prisoner who was still alive, was at the protest opposite Parliament.
We can compare to the Holocaust. When the Holocaust started new, nobody believed it. Then, by the time they regretted, it was already caused 6 million people die.
20 years since the persecution of Falun Gong in China started, and practitioners and supporters continue to peacefully raise awareness. Jane Worrell, NTD News.
In August, China slapped tariffs on $75 billion worth of U.S. imports. Some of that, which is set to take effect December 15th, will raise costs on recycled products from the U.S.
On Monday, the U.S. began tariffing $112 billion of Chinese goods at 15%. China has retaliated with more tariffs set to take effect on December 15th. Among the products that will be affected, old corrugated cardboard, newsprint, and some higher-grade recycled fibers. Tariffs on those will rise from 25% to 30%.
But I think China requires that volume. So as China's growth, it's going to require the recycling products to make products out of it because it manufactures quite a bit of things.
China remains the largest market for old U.S. corrugated cardboard. In the first half of this year, China imported 2.24 million tons of old corrugated cardboard and 900,000 tons of the additional recovered fiber from the U.S. Since last year, China has restricted the import of foreign solid waste, mainly plastics, paper, and scrap metal.
More than half of the recyclables, 17 million tons a year, went from the United States to China. It was a very significant component, and now it's less than half of that.
However, China still has a large demand for raw materials. Some Chinese companies have started to invest in American recycled paper mills. Those products they then ship to China.
Where I see this happening is circular economy. You're going to make the product, and then that product is what's going to be able to be shipped out, not the recyclable.
The United States and China are still planning to hold trade talks later this month. But with a breakdown in talks before, what will come of them is hard to predict. Reporting by Kitty Wong, NTD News.
And New York City's annual West Indian Day Parade was a glimmer of color on Labor Day. And despite the rain, the usual throngs were there to watch.
The annual parade is a colorful showcase of costumes and dancing from throughout the Caribbean. It drew people from Caribbean nations like Barbados, the Bahamas, Trinidad, Jamaica, and Dominica.
I love it. It's so full of life, and there's nothing like the colors, the dancing, music, food. We came out here in the rain just to see this.
My second time. How do you feel? I feel great.
It's so colorful and celebrates the best of New York.
The organizers didn't let the weather dampen one of Brooklyn's top yearly cultural celebrations. City and state officials also came out to celebrate alongside New York's Caribbean community.
Great way to celebrate the contributions of the Caribbean community here in New York City and in New York State. So rain or shine, it's a great parade.
This is our chance to say this is a place where immigrants have built this city. Not only that, it is an economic infusion of our city. Millions of people on the Parkway, they spend money, they go to restaurants, hotels.
In years past, the parade has been marred by violence. Several people have been shot or stabbed during or before the parade. But this year and last year have been peaceful. However, police retained a strong presence in the parade just in case. Today's parade was part of Caribbean Carnival Week.
And that's all for today's NTD News. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.